thank you very much, Professor Günther, for your statement. Let us now turn to our final keynote speaker. And as you have seen on the list in the program, but when you look at the circle here, the speaker will be Professor Alain Beretz. Unfortunately, Minister Frédérique Vidal had to cancel her participation due to the current developments at the universities in France. But we are delighted to have you, Alain. Alain is Director General for Research and Innovation at the Ministry of Higher Education. He is a professor of pharmacology with a distinguished research career. He served as Vice President and then President of Université Louis Pasteur Strasbourg, and subsequently as the President of the merged University of Strasbourg, and then also from 2013 to 2016 as the Chair of the League of European Research Universities. And I'm saying that because, unfortunately, we're not able to put that into the program. We welcome you very much, and we're looking forward to your statement.
Thank you so much. I just want to go on and apologize my minister, Professor Frédérique Vidal. She has introduced disruptive innovation in the way we admit students in the universities, and innovation is not always well acquainted. So she really regrets, because she had the chance to greet Minister Karliczek in Paris only 2 weeks ago, and she really wanted to pay back the visit. So again, I'm carrying her apologies, but it's a pleasure and an honor for me to stand for her and to try to carry the message that she intended to bring it today. Really, I want to highlight both the special links between France and Germany in our field, but also our strong push towards Europe. And I think it goes along some lines that are in your new German coalition treaty, in which those two aspects are treated. So I guess I'm more or less in the subject. Really, I want to focus, as this part of the debate is really on value added, European value added. I will concentrate mainly on the bilateral aspects, as I said, and also on the multilateral aspects. And I think it has already been cited by several speakers. We have to look at the Lamy report, which is really something that sets the scene for probably our intentions and our ambitions. Maybe I would like to start by saying that the role of the European Union is clearly there to tackle the major issues of our time. And this is especially important in the field of higher education research and innovation. It was mentioned several times. President Macron said it in his speech at the Sorbonne, and it's very interesting, the outreach of this simple speech, in fact, because he put this back into the real political agenda. And at the time where Europe is questioned, Europe ideal is questioned, we have to remember what it represents, and we have to find ways to defend what it represents. I can illustrate this by some examples. The global challenges. They do require a multilateral approach. The global challenges don't stop at our national borders. Clearly, for example, human health, it shows that the EU has done very good results on health. For example, and this is just an example, the way we could mobilize several countries to respond to the major outbreaks such as Ebola and Zika. And this is probably something without Europe we could have never done. I've heard, and I will do my literature search, I've heard about the Riesenhaber criteria, very interesting. And in fact, I was more or less rediscovering them, because this is part of really our intentions. I think the value added of Europe is critical mass and risk-taking, that we can do much better as a group than as individual. But the critical mass, I would first put it forward as the intellectual critical mass, and not just as the financial critical mass, which obviously is something that we have to speak about. The intellectual critical mass, I won't come back to what Jean-Pierre just said. Clearly, the DRC is a good example of maybe the Eisenhower criteria apply to basic research. And I won't comment because you did it beautifully, but it's something that we have to insist on all the time. The domain of disruptive innovation, which is one of the key lines today, is also an example of critical mass. The EU can really guarantee the critical mass, the risk-taking, the level of funding, the diversity of project portfolios, and this is why we think, and we have a little disagreement with our German colleagues at the moment, which is very good for France, that we think that this could be carried at a European level. We are not pushing at this moment a French agency by itself, like Herr Schutter has alluded to before. We think that this European scale agency could respond to the various criteria of independence, reactiveness, risk-taking that were already said before. Of course, it has to be proven, but this is at the moment the choice that we are pushing. It has, of course, to be compatible with national or bilateral approaches eventually. Another issue where you find the value added is clearly the safety and technological sovereignty. It happens, I try to follow what President Macron was in my hometown in Strasbourg at the European Parliament this morning, and in his speech, I think he spoke clearly about one of the issues is this big word of sovereignty, and I think it's very important that we defend the interests and the values of Europe in this worldwide competition, and some aspects were already spoken about earlier today. For example, just again, true-to-life example, supercomputing and future calculation models are really one of those aspects. And since March 2017, 15 countries have joined the Euro HPC initiative. It will receive, I think, 500 million euros from the EU. This is the only way to respond to the challenge. I mean, no country could ever respond to this challenge by itself. Another aspect in those criteria is our international attractiveness as Europe. It is in the center of Carlos Moedas' strategy of the 3 O's. And I think it also resonates quite strongly with our priorities, our national priorities of France, because I think we want to reinforce Europe through mobility, culture, and knowledge. And this has to translate into concrete actions: student mobility, harmonization of curricula, and the fostering of a deeper European identity. And there I want to cite the project of, I don't want to cite my president all the time, I'm very sorry, but it's again what he said in the Sorbonne speech about the European universities. They should really be built on excellence, they should be built on quality, but at the same time a true geographical balance, and involve at the end universities for all member states. They should reinforce, as I said, international attractiveness, visibility of a higher education institution. How could they do this? They can do this by developing common programs, joint programs of education, but also, and I want to insist on this because it's a university, programs of research and innovation. It's not just education. It's a global strategy. And maybe a word of vocabulary. They are not just networks. I think if we want to succeed, networks we have plenty of them already. If we want to succeed, we need institutions which develop what you can call the affectio societatis of not the technical, not a new structure, but a structure of which the students and the professors can be proud of, carry an identity, and this identity is also a true European identity. To finish about those arguments, The influence of Europe in the world is very important, especially for our neighboring countries and the Mediterranean and African countries. And here again, value added of Europe, some initiatives like the Pre-Mind initiative, the Desire initiative, or the African high-level dialogue on science and technology are really something that we need. We need it for our individual countries, we need it for Europe, but this cannot be done on an individual basis. And for all these reasons, France is strongly committed to this ambitious approach of European higher education research and innovation. But it should not be at the expense of bilateral collaboration. In fact, it should be totally in synergy with it. And again, in this aspect, the German-French relation is exemplary. The Common Council of Ministers provides a unique platform of cooperation. We have a dedicated roadmap. We have also, even our ministries collaborate. We had the delegation of 20 people from our ministry come to Aachen earlier this spring to work with our colleagues from BMBF on very practical, everyday issues. So, and of course, we look forward to the new redaction of the Élysée Treaty. And last but not least, I want to mention the cross-border cooperation. I'm just facing Hans-Jörgen Schiever, which I was also, I have to say, very active into it. And I think it's a very profound asset for us. It's for building Europe. And in this aspect, I also want to mention the Franco-German University with 186 member institutions. I think it's one very good asset, not only for France and Germany, but really as a building block for Europe. Finally, to conclude, let me stress that France and Germany have this relationship that can serve as a driving force for a larger European context. And in this aspect, I can announce that we are preparing with our colleagues a common position for the next framework program. And this common French and German position will also come into the debate, but you can see that if we can put forward a common position that will stress, for example, increasing EU funds for research and innovation, maintaining the stress on excellence, maintaining the collaborative approach of FP9, the research innovation continuum, and also co-construction of the famous missions between the Commission and the Member States. These are some parts on which France and Germany will push, will have a common voice and maybe act as a vanguard for this new construction. Also, we have joint calls for research between France and Germany. A dedicated call on storage and distribution of renewable energy will come out this summer. Antimicrobial resistance is also another area of collaboration, and coordinated calls can come throughout both of our countries. I can only remind the Make Our Planet Great Again call that launched by Macron earlier, that was now joined by Germany through the launch of a call called Forschung für nachhaltige Entwicklung, which complements or supplements this call of Make Our Planet Great Again. So through these few examples, I hope I have illustrated the way the French perspective illustrates, complements those interactions between local, regional, national, European and international processes. But it shows, I hope, our strong belief in European issues. It also shows that the French-German collaboration is probably a backbone for Europe, and this is the way we see it. This is why I look forward to our next meeting, which will be the Franco-German Research Summit here in Berlin on the 19th of June, and this probably will illustrate some of the principles I spoke very briefly today. I thank you again for your attention.